AOC looking like she's going to get sued, and she's freaking out. She's actually, I think, legitimately scared. She's also doing some political posturing around this one. She went on to NPR this morning and basically doubled down, without totally admitting that she was doubling down, on all that she's been up to, which is effectively, if you ask Pam Bondi, obstructing justice. Here we go.
You had a recent dispute, if that's the right word, with Tom Homan, the president's Homeland Security czar, so-called. You held an online forum, a Know Your Rights forum, that he didn't like. What were you doing? What was your goal as you saw it?
My job is to educate and act as a liaison of critical information to my constituents. And I was informing all of my constituents of their constitutional protections, and in particular, their constitutional protections against illegal search and seizure in the United States.
Homan was upset, I suppose, because he felt that you were giving advice to people who were here illegally. Were you?
I was giving advice to all of my constituents. Yeah.
He said he was going to report you, or even that he did reach out to the Department of Justice. Have you heard from the Department of Justice?
I have not, and I intend on reaching out to the Department of Justice to inquire.
Really? What would your question be for the Department of Justice?
Well, there is a member of the Trump administration who is threatening and seeks to open an inquiry, and are you going to do it?
What would you learn? What do you hope to learn from that exchange?
I think it's important to know where this administration stands and if they intend on using political intimidation to silence their critics.
I have to be careful about not laughing too hard. I'm still getting over a cold. Okay, so she's all freaking out because she's basically doing something illegal, right? She's talking about my constituents, my constituents, my constituents. I'm sorry, but your constituents, many of whom are here illegally in the United States, really aren't quite your constituents, AOC. I do think you might want to answer to the people that actually really are legally in your district, maybe. Sort of. I mean, Tom Homan, he's got no use for her right now. Tom Homan is the border czar in charge of all of this, and they go way back. Look, I'm going to show you. But first, look at what he told Maria just this morning. Maria Bartiromo, my good friend, former colleague, actually, at Fox Business. I want you to see.
This is the guy that you locked in a jail cell. That's who we want to talk to.
Well, I mean, look, you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing webinars to explain to illegal immigrants how to evade ICE arrest. And then she tweeted out after something you said maybe she's going to be in trouble now. And she says maybe he can learn to read the Constitution would be a good place to start. She's continuing her resist efforts against your efforts, Tom.
Look, I forgot more about the Constitution, immigration enforcement as you ever know. I mean, I had to educate her during congressional testimony that entering the country illegally is a crime. So, whatever. But what she needs to do is read the statutes enacted by Congress. Title 8, United States Code 1324, United States. Title 8, United States Code 1324 and 25. That's what she needs to read, because it's illegal to enter this country. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. Not only that, when you harbor and conceal and impede law enforcement, that's a felony. So what she's doing, she says she's educating them as to the constitutional rights, and we all know they got constitutional rights. But what she's really doing, you and I and the rest of the country knows, she's trying to teach them how to evade law enforcement. Now, I just said, well, out of the gate, we're concentrating on public safety threats, national security threats. So she's educating those in the country illegally with a significant criminal conviction, public safety threat. Don't open your door. Don't dot the I's. Here's how you invade law enforcement. Let's hope she's not educating the next person who gets out and murders a young college student in Georgia. I mean, these are bad people we're looking for. So she can call it education all she wants, but we all know it's about evading law enforcement. These people have been ordered removed. The people we're looking for right now have final orders. They're criminals. They're in the country illegally. A judge has ordered them removed. They become a fugitive. And these are the folks she's helping? So I've asked the Department of Justice to look at this. Where is the line on impediment? Where does that fine line so we can instruct ICE officers what they can do when people don't open the doors or try to evade their arrest? So I simply asked DOJ, give me a legal opinion, because every Department of Justice will interpret things differently. What is the legal opinion on impediment? And we'll see what happens.
How significant are the
We will
businesses that
see.
the dangerous cartels have
We will see what will happen. And again, my source is telling me they're looking very seriously at this, and you can expect this. It's imminent. Pam Bondi is going to be arresting or suing one AOC for impeding law officers, federal law officers, in terms of what they need to do. And don't forget, like all day long, the feds actually have jurisdiction on this one. When it comes to the border, that is the one area, the federal government, that they absolutely, positively, unquestionably have jurisdiction on. It's why we had problems down in Texas, right? Abbott couldn't do what he needed to do in Texas. He wanted to keep the wall up. They were taking the wall down. But it's because federal law actually says that the federal government is the one that's going to regulate who's in, who's out of this country. Here is Tom Homan a couple years back dusting it up with one AOC. So when he says, he knows he's forgotten more about the Constitution than she'll ever know, he's not kidding. He's already told her about Title 8, Section 13, 24, and 25.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the memo is submitted to the record for review. Inspector General Costello, one last thing. Is there
So, as I said, this kind of goes way back. They've had a history here, and now she's out there, she's doing these seminars, she's telling people this is how you avoid them. Ilhan Omar is doing the exact same thing, and I think that she's going to be in jeopardy now too. But listen, you can't do that, right? You're impeding law enforcement from doing their jobs. She's got this thing that she posted onto Instagram. If you see ICE in public, make sure you verify, you document. Oh, and then, si ves a ICE en público, verificar, okay? Documentar. So she's all doing it in Spanish as well, just to make sure that nobody actually misses out because she doesn't actually speak Spanish. So this does seem to be kind of basic, guys. I mean, if they're looking for bad guys, if they're looking for the criminals, and she's out there hosting webinars and putting this information out, now she wants to know, oh, am I going to get arrested for this? And then she's trying to, I think, my estimation, not only is she scared, right, that she may, but she's actually trying to politically posture herself ahead of this to try and say, oh, well, this is just him being big bad old Trump, and this is him using his political capabilities. No, this is him using the law. In other words, you are a member of Congress and you're out there just flaunting it. I mean, you doubled down on it with NPR today. So AOC, you do have a little bit of a problem. She sent a letter here on Friday to Pam Bondi, and I just want to share with you some excerpts from this one because it's clear that she is very worried that, in fact, of course, she probably wants to make herself the story too, but she's getting worried that she's actually now running the risk of being arrested by the feds. I write to request clarity on whether the Department of Justice has yielded to, quote, political pressure and attempts to weaponize the agency against elected officials whose speech they disagree with. Over the past 2 weeks, Borders are Tom Homan has gone on multiple forums threatening political prosecution against me, citing resources I distributed, informing my constituents and the American public of their constitutional and legal rights. But you see, no, you don't really have those constitutional legal rights. If you're in the country illegally, you can't just completely evade ICE. I mean, and not to mention, like, what about the greater good here? What about the fact that you have people that have lost their lives at the hands of some of these illegal immigrants? I mean, we've got an estimation from ICE of some 650,000 people that are in this country illegally and that are known criminals. And we're talking like homicide. We're talking assault. We are talking about really, 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 really bad guys. 650,000 plus of them that we know of, right? And you don't want to allow law enforcement to be able to arrest them? You don't want ICE to be able to go in and arrest them? And look, I'm sorry, but you know what? If you got a friend who's a really, really bad guy, and ICE knows that that bad guy is here, and they go to your apartment and they get the bad guy, and you happen to be there and you're here illegally as well, then you're going to get rounded up. And she's trying to say, oh, well, you're never supposed to invite them into your home to begin with. You're never supposed to open the door. You're never supposed to give any kind of documentation. They're asking, by the way, in this green light law that they have in New York, they're asking that people give over their information. And the DMV is sort of in conflict here because they've been handing out licenses to people who are not supposed to be here because they don't have the proper credentials. So it's all mixed up. And this is sort of one of these federal versus state cases, but it's pretty clear cut. All right, like it's actually very clear cut. The feds have the jurisdiction in this one. So if she's going to impede law enforcement, then she actually is on the wrong side of the law, and they are going to have the ability to go after her, just as I imagine they are going to go after one Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar likely to be next after one AOC, because she too is out there giving webinars and seminars saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to say anything to ICE. You can avoid ICE, and here's how you do it. Here she is. And in this particular, okay, I know we don't speak Arabic, so I'm just going to jump in. Here she is in her native language, speaking to people in her community, saying, hey, this is how you do it. Here's how you avoid ICE. Well, this, again, stands in the face of everything that that Tom is saying you can't do. So Ilhan, you too, just like AOC, are absolutely in violation of some of the most basic laws here, which leads me to believe that Ilhan Omar will likely also be next. I mean, Brandon Gale is the representative from Texas, brand new, junior representative from Texas, and he was on CNN recently talking about the importance of going after somebody like Ilhan Omar because she doesn't really seem to appreciate some of the American values that all of us hold dear. And she's out there informing people on how to avoid ICE. It kind of seems like it's at odds with what we need to be or want to be as a country.
I just want to follow up with this post that you had on X. You said that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a U.S. citizen, should be deported to her home country of Somalia. Omar became a naturalized citizen at 17. Why did you do that?
Well, listen, my colleague Ilhan Omar, she is an American citizen. She is a member of the House of Representatives. I didn't call for her to be deported, but I did say that America would be better off were she deported. I think that there is a serious problem, particularly given after the past 4 years of open borders, of Democrats facilitating the invasion of our country by illegal aliens. My colleague Ilhan Omar was advising illegal alien Somalis on how to evade ICE detection. That is as un-American as you can possibly get. It's unbecoming of a congressperson.
What evidence?
And I absolutely
where are
think
you
that
getting
it is
that from
disgusting.
specifically? Where are you getting that from specifically?
We have the audio of her doing that.
But do you
it was
think
in an
that
interview.
She is a duly elected member of Congress.
She has a duty
constituents
to uphold
put her
the
in
values
office
and customs of America,
you're
not to represent foreign illegal aliens who shouldn't be here to begin with. And I think that raises serious questions.
She is helping people understand what the laws are. But listen.
That raises serious. To whom is she most loyal? Illegal aliens, Somalis, or American citizens?
She's representing
I think
her
that's a very
constituents
legitimate question.
As a member of Congress. Congressman Brandon Gale, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate this conversation.
Okay. So the CNN anchor was, as usual, a little bit mixed up. But anyway, yeah, we got the tape. I just showed you the tape. I mean, Brandon's saying we got the audio tape. We can do even better. Hey, we got the videotape. And then AOC's doubling down on it too. So I do imagine that these women are going to be in a lot of trouble, as they should be. Again, like law and order, folks, law and order. And they keep saying, oh, we're here, we're protecting our constituents. I'm sorry, how are you protecting your constituents? Your constituents are the ones that are saying, hey, we need a little law and order around here. We actually need to be able to enforce all of these rules regarding migration. Look who got voted in. All right, and before you sit there and tell me, well, Queens is different, I don't actually think New York is changing. You look at some of the demographic data that came out of New York and New Jersey and some of these typically blue states, and what you find is that a lot of people, they agreed on this one. Immigration was a massive issue. Immigration and inflation, right, in this election, for sure. And so I think that, and not to mention DEI and a few other things, so I think that you're going to start to see a lot of changes. And it's about time, because we need some semblance of law and order. I mean, I remember back in the day, and I've played some of these sound bites for you guys, when all the Democrats actually did believe that you couldn't come here illegally. I mean, yeah, you can go back to the 90s. You once had the late Dianne Feinstein saying that we're not going to become the welfare state for Mexico. Well, you better believe it, we're not going to become the welfare state for Mexico. And yet you fast forward to here we are in 2024. We are the welfare state for Mexico. I mean, you've got the Roosevelt Hotel that up until recently, until Eric Adams had the, because maybe Donald Trump was in office and had been elected. I mean, they were giving out $350 a week because people had to buy their specialty food items. And you had people staying in the Roosevelt Hotel in Midtown that, get this, we were paying the Pakistani government $200 million a year for. Yeah, because they owned the hotel. Like, that makes any sense? Your taxpayer dollars going to that? I don't think so. So all of this is getting rethought. All while, by the way, New York is struggling with serious crime problems. I mean, just think about the horrible thing that happened on the subway. I don't like to think about it. But the reality is all of this has to change, and it is changing, whether these women like it or not. You know who really doesn't like it? Letitia James. We're going to talk about that coming up, because she's just having a fit. She's right there with AOC. Pretty soon she may find her little tushy in a cell as well, right? Quick shout out for one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan program. That would be American Heart for Gold. We love them because they help us bring you this show for free, right? Every single day. 1-844-495-1115. You can get up to $15,000 in free silver right now. Text Trish to 65532. I'll tell you, this is important when you think about what's going on within the world, right? I think there's still a lot of fear about inflation. Even with Donald Trump in office, and I've said this, I was actually tweeting this out last night. Look, I mean, you got to cut him some slack. He's only been there like a month and a few days. But there's some big things that need to get addressed, and it's going to be challenging, like the tariffs, for example, to address those simultaneously while dealing with inflation. Now, hopefully the Federal Reserve may help out a little bit. But the more they help, also the more they contribute to inflation. So there you go. It's like this catch-22. Look at gold, right? Amidst it all, look at gold. You can get up to $15,000, as I said, in free silver right now from our friends at American Heart for Gold. The other thing I would tell you to do is still pay close attention to these markets, because you saw a big sell-off today, although we lifted up a little bit at the bottom as we got the news that Donald Trump was announcing those 25% tariffs that do take place on Mexico and on Canada tomorrow. It's interesting. It all relates back, right, to this immigration issue, which is so challenging for people. And he's saying, hey, you know what, you guys got to do your part. And you haven't been doing your part. And so because of that, we are going to slap these tariffs on them. And we should not have a trade deficit like we do with these guys. You go back to NAFTA and Clinton, and that's actually sort of the source of the deterioration, if you would, in a lot of the manufacturing jobs and manufacturing center here in the USA. So that needs to change. And he can't do it overnight, but gosh, I mean, he's only been there a little over a week, and what do you know? Things are starting to shift. So one other thing I just wanted to shout out, as long as we're talking about money right now, do take a look at my 76 Research, American Resilience, Inflation Protection, Income Builder portfolio, all created for you guys. Go to 76research.com, use code word dollar. My gift to you, just $1 a month for the first 2 months. And those portfolios, we just issued some quarterly reports on them today. So that's fresh in your inbox if you are a subscriber to the portfolios.